sitting at my desk, and all of a sudden I saw a small plane fly past my office window, which is on the 7th floor, and I went, oh, he's really, really low, and he started banking and turning back towards the airport, and then I heard a loud bang.
Can you describe the aircraft? What kind of aircraft did it?
Blue and white. It's a small blue and white aircraft.
One of the smaller ones, so definitely not the bigger ones.
No.
In terms of the sounds, was it making any sputtering noise you couldn't hear?
Nothing. So he was just like gliding and turning and banking. So I think he was trying to make it back to the airport.
So once it passed your window, it was kind of out of your view and you couldn't really see much?
I didn't see anything, but then like a couple minutes later, I just heard a loud bang.
And tell me, did it startle other people in your building? What was that reaction like?
Yeah, a bunch of people ran up to the roof and we were watching it from the roof.
And describe when you came out here, it took you a few minutes to make your way down here to the scene. What did you see once you arrived here? Was the smoke still billowing, crews on scene?
No, they had the smoke was put out fairly quick from the other side of the street there by United Cargo. So that was out.
Okay, and last question. This must have been very scary to witness. What were your thoughts as you saw it happen?
Yeah, it was a little close to the building.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for sharing your witness account. We do appreciate it. So once again, it looks like this is still a very active scene as we have just arrived here, and the firefighters are still working to make sure the fire is fully out. Most of the smoke is gone, but as you can see, the firefighters are using the ladders to access this building from the roof from as many angles as possible. But that's what we know so far. Once again, arriving here on the scene just a few moments ago along Uolena Street. For now, we'll send things back into the studio for you.
All right, Dylan, thank you so much. We're going to go back now to some of the video taken right after the crash, give you a sense of the smoke after that plane hit the building and then came down on the ground. I can give you more background about Kamaka Air. They were bought by a couple of investment companies in 2022, Trinity Investors and RLG Capital, and then they got some new leadership just this past summer. Two former directors of Southwest Airlines, including Dave Hinderlin, who was appointed CEO. He has more than 30 years of airline and cargo experience. So they took over this summer. Our last story we did on them in the summer suggested there were some hiccups getting started. Our calls weren't returned, and Congress members were trying to get some information from the airline, and there was some level of uncertainty, and the FAA did ground the airline briefly after that ownership change, and there were questions about their staffing. This is all months ago. Unknown at all if this is related to today's crash. What we do know, just looking at the video and hearing from people at the scene, is that a Kamaka Air flight took off from H&L, had some trouble, made a hard turn, came in low, hit a building that's believed to be vacant, and then hit the ground. And our sources, multiple sources, are telling us 2 people are dead. The fire is out, but HFD is still there on the scene, going into that building that was struck to make sure there are no pockets of flames. This is a live look. We have multiple live cameras there at the scene. Many roads closed all around Aolele. This is near Lagoon Drive, and that is the status. That's what we know so far.
That's right. And we want to check in with Jonathan Masaki to see what we know about those road closures as we head into the Pauhana commute. Jonathan, what can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you that several roads are closed as we speak right now. So just so you know, we have from HPD that Uolena, Ohuhea Street, also Paea Street, Aolele, as well as Lagoon Drive and Pu'uloa Streets are closed at this hour. Also, want to take you to some cameras to kind of give you an idea what's open right now. The viaduct, which is the way to get to the airport, is open and it's flowing very, very nicely. So it's not affected by what's going on down below, but just know that you can still get to the airport. It's not closed in that area. When I switch the cameras and take you below, you probably might see some action taking place right now. The camera is kind of pointed away from the scene. If I move to another camera right here, you see both cameras are right now not focused on what's going on. But I can tell you that those roads still remain closed and the viaduct is open. So if you got to get to the airport, at least you can make it via the upper deck of the freeway. As you can see, the flow looking very, very nice at this point. Keahi and Ashley, back to you.
All right, Jonathan, thank you. New video just into our newsroom here. This is wreckage of the plane crash today at the scene. A whole bunch of bricks and concrete And there you go. This video really
Yeah.
gives us a sense of what happened there this afternoon. Big chunk of that tower is missing.
Yes, and you saw parts of the wreckage on the ground, parts of the wreckage in the building. Definitely a very, very, very big crash. Witnesses on the scene said it was a loud bang. They thought it was a car accident. And in that tower cam video, you saw the flames and the smoke. Definitely a devastating, heartbreaking situation. As we look at this new video that's coming into our newsroom, we're seeing it as you're seeing it. You know, I'm a loss for words almost, Kyahi. We haven't seen this in a while here in Hawaii, and knowing that lives were lost, it's even more tragic.
Yeah, and Kamaka Air, of course, cargo company that employs a lot of younger pilots just starting out, trying to get their hours. They're licensed and certified, but they spend the early part of their career typically flying for a cargo company like this. And so we are awaiting a lot more information about who was on that plane, the 2 lives lost today. And right now, our hearts are sinking for the people out there who may be wondering if their loved ones went to work today working for Kamaka Air. These are likely local pilots who are heading back and forth to the neighbor islands. Kamaka often flies to Molokai. They're one of the primary airlines to deliver pharmaceuticals to the Molokai pharmacy there, and they also hire out for private charter flights. But our sources are telling us 2 people are dead here, and that would suggest that these were 2 people on either a cargo flight or perhaps a training flight. And I did mention earlier that we have an entire team here at Hawaii News Now looking for information on this. Our Daryl Huff, of course, our senior reporter with some of the best contacts in town. Let's go to him now and see what he can tell us. Daryl?
Well, I can't tell you a whole lot, Kyahi, that's confirmed or not. We don't have a lot of official sources. What I can tell you is that Kamaka Air did run into some trouble with the FAA in the summertime when there was a sudden ownership change and the new owners came in and there was a shakeup of management and some people left voluntarily quite suddenly. So the FAA basically asked them to shut down for a period of time, which they did. And then they went through a process of trying to hire a chief pilot and another executive in charge of safety. Now that was almost 6 months ago. So we don't know what progress they made. They certainly were allowed to reopen. Now, as you were mentioning, they're a key component in serving Molokai, Lanai with cargo primarily, but also with the problems that Mokulele Airlines has, which flies the same kind of airplanes, by the way. They stepped in with a lot more charter flights, people who really need to get on time to one of those neighbor islands. Now, they both fly these large Citation aircraft, which are single-engine aircraft primarily, and we mentioned that they're taking off from 4 left. If this is a typical trade wind day, that takeoff would take them fairly close to the Mokulele Airlines terminal and over the area where there's quite a few airlines parked and so on. So actually the outcome here, if a plane has a sudden failure of its single engine, that it managed to crash without crashing, say, into the middle of Kalihi, where there's a lot of people, you know, you have to wonder what the last few seconds were of those of that pilot's life. We have heard that this potentially was a training flight. As you mentioned, Kyahi, a lot of these pilots are very young. I once thought I might have been on a Disneyland ride once with a pilot on a flight where they said, you know, how old are you? he was very young. So hopefully these are somewhat experienced people. We cannot blame the pilots. We cannot blame the airline. We don't know anything like that for now. If we hear anything more, I'll be back with you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Daryl. And speaking of winds, we will be checking in with Drew Davis in a little bit to see, you know, how the winds were at the time. Again, this happened around 3:15 this afternoon. We're hearing at least 2 people have perished in this plane crash, a Kamaka Air cargo plane. And you're seeing video taken moments after the crash. Big, thick black smoke billowing from that building, large flames from this video of the crash we have here. Not the best quality, but you can see that bright orange glow, black flames, black cloud of smoke as that plane crashed there. And we're going to still collect more details. We have 2 crews at the scene there gathering information, sending us visuals minute by minute, second by second. Something new is coming in, and we're keeping you up to date as much as we can.
Yeah. While we've been watching, I noticed those huge fuel tanks in the video, and I looked it up. That belongs to Hawaii Fueling Facilities on Aolele. This building here is actually just Mauka of Aolele Street. So just take that in for a second, how close this plane came to crashing into those giant fuel tanks there. There's at least 6 or so, and they're very tall, 40+ feet fuel tanks. And so this building is just across the street. We're told it was a vacant building, still trying to find out exactly who owns it and why it was vacant. But all in all, when you think about a plane coming down at a high rate of speed in that area, rather remarkable that no one else was hit today. When you look at the debris field, the damage done to that building, how close it was to those huge fuel tanks, we'll mourn for these 2 lives lost and be grateful that it wasn't worse.
And this just in, Keahi, we're told the Honolulu Emergency Operations Center, the EOC, is partially activated in response to this incident. So the city's Department of Emergency Management, they are monitoring the situation. And of course, as you've seen, we have multiple first responder agencies at this disaster, including HFD, HPD. They're all responding to this incident. So again, the EOC here in Honolulu is partially activated so that crews can be coordinated in their response effort to this plane crash.
Yeah, that is the key point there, the coordination, investigating what went wrong. There's going to be a huge process of cleanup, of recovering the 2 bodies here, of dealing with the aftermath of all of this, the investigations. The Kamaka Air, I would assume, is grounding immediately. And although the airport is staying open, if you know anyone catching a flight today or coming in, as far as we know, all flights are unaffected by this, passenger flights. But on the east end of the airport, near Mokulele and the cargo offices for the major airports, that entire area is basically shut down right now. Not counting Mokulele, as far as we know, they're unaffected, but the cargo area and Aolele getting to and from. So be aware of that if you're trying to head to that east end of the airport.
All right, at this time, we want to go back out live to our Dylan Ancheta, who found another witness to the plane crash. Dylan, what did he see?
Hey, aloha, thank you so much. Yes, we are still here at the scene, and people have been lining the sidewalk, curious onlookers. Some people did see the plane kind of flying rather low. Other people just saw the smoke, but I'm joined by Sergio, who was at a shop nearby. Tell us, where were you again when you saw this?
So we arrived to tires shop, it's a couple buildings from here, and then we heard, loud sound, and it was playing, toward like at our head. And it was crazy because it was so low, and then he like turning left side, and we didn't see, and then it was like sound, but it's not was loud sound like crashed, and we just continued to came here and see fire. Yeah, crazy,
Describe, if you were maybe to compare it to the electrical poles here, how close to the ground was the plane flying over you folks?
Maybe a couple buildings this tall.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So it was fairly close to the ground.
Yeah.
And when you saw the smoke, describe how thick it was, what you guys heard, what you smelled as you came outside here.
Smelled, I'm not sure. My English not so good, but it smells like tires, burning something. Yeah. And it was crazy because we didn't know what it's plane crashed, We thinking maybe it's fire because sound was not so loud, like crash something, Yeah, but when we asked the police guy, it's confirmed, and we was shocked, because it's almost crashed to us, and I hope, I don't know, maybe not many people affected.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. As mentioned, this is the second witness that we spoke to that said they did see the plane flying rather low. However, they did not hear any sputtering sounds or any out of the ordinary sounds as that plane was flying rather low. Of course, there is a high-rise building here, which we know that it flew past those windows, and it put the office workers in that building on edge. And then, of course, as we know, it came down and crashed. It looked like it apparently clipped this building before crashing on the other side of it. So we remain here at the scene. Once again, we are still awaiting that update with EMS officials working to get more details for you. Live here by Daniel K. Inouye International Airport. I'll send things back to you.
All right, Dylan, thanks so much. If you're just joining us this afternoon, unfortunately, we're reporting a deadly plane crash at the Honolulu airport. According to multiple sources, 2 people have died after a Kamaka air flight came down hard just moments after taking off on the east end of the runway there at H&L. And we are trying to get more confirmation about the people involved and what went wrong.
Yeah, multiple agencies are responding at this time: fire, police, EMS. We have multiple crews there as well, covering this from all angles. We want to go live now to our Eddie Dowd. Eddie, you've been down there for about an hour now. What can you tell us?
Well, we actually got to see where that plane appeared to have crashed, and what we saw was the parts of the plane were scattered around the area. We saw a plane wing. I don't know if we're showing video of that, but that was kind of in the ditch next to the building. We also saw what appeared to be a landing gear a little ways away near the parking lot of that building. And then we also saw what looked like a pretty large hole on the side of the building. Now, we were talking to emergency officials. I mean, we arrived shortly after they arrived, and they are still trying to piece together what happened, but they were saying what possibly could have happened was the airplane was coming down, hit the building first, and then that's when the pieces of debris scattered. Again, that's just what they're saying could have possibly happened, but they're still working to confirm. The situation is still very new as we're trying to figure out what exactly caused this small plane to crash. We did talk to witnesses who described the scene as hearing a loud boom at first. Some of them were just working in this area. That's when they came out and saw that inferno. And so right now we are just working to get more information from Honolulu EMS. They just arrived on scene, the spokesperson, so we will wait to see if they give an update very shortly. We'll send it back to you.
Thank you so much, Eddie. We have new video into our newsroom at this time that we want to show you. This was taken by someone driving by just moments after that crash. You can see that big, smoke, flames as they're slowly driving by here. Just a remarkable situation unfolding as this person, is clearly surprised by what he's seeing. And just the fire response after that took place is just incredible.
Now, if you know the area, you probably recognize the building with the whale painting on the side right there. I believe this driver here is heading on Aolele, heading east. That's toward Lagoon Drive. And the building where this happened, this is actually the back of the building that faces Uolena Street, 1 Street Mauka of this area. That's the address of it. We're told it's vacant. Still trying to confirm that. The mapping sites show it was actually registered to an Army recruiting outfit for a while. Unclear if that's still current, but this is the back of a building there. You have that tower that was struck. So this is Uolena Street is the address of that area. Basically just across the street from those huge fuel tanks we've been looking at, and you can see them in the live shot if you look closely. Remarkable how close that plane came to perhaps an even bigger disaster. There's 6+ giant fuel tanks nearby, a bunch of office buildings and crowded areas, not to mention Mokulele Airlines. So the fact that this plane came down in a vacant building is rather remarkable in that busy area.
Right. We've actually heard from residents at a nearby high-rise who said they saw the plane pass by closely to the windows. That would have been just, tragic. So thankfully, the pilots were able to do something to avoid those heavily populated areas and buildings. And we are definitely getting more information about what may have been happening in those moments before the crash. Stephanie Lum has some new audio that she wants to bring us about I'm told we don't have Stephanie yet. We're going to have her in a little bit. She has audio from the air traffic control tower, which will probably shed more light on what happened.
Ash, you were talking about the people in high-rises nearby. In fact, we did speak with somebody who can share with us in their own words what it was like watching this unfold.
So I was sitting at my desk, and all of a sudden I saw a small plane fly past my office window, which is on the 7th floor, and I went, oh, he's really, really low, and he started banking and turning back towards the airport, and then I heard a loud bang.
Can you describe the aircraft? What kind of aircraft did it?
Blue and white. It's a small blue and white aircraft.
One of the smaller ones, so definitely not the bigger ones.
No.
In terms of the sounds, was it making any sputtering noise you couldn't hear?
Nothing. So he was just like gliding and turning and banking. So I think he was trying to make it back to the airport.
So once it passed your window, it was kind of out of your view and you couldn't really see much?
I didn't see anything, but then like a couple minutes later, I just heard a loud bang.
And tell me, did it startle other people in your building? What was that reaction like?
Yeah, a bunch of people ran up to the roof and we were watching it from the roof.
And describe when you came out here, it took you a few minutes to make your way down here to the scene. What did you see once you arrived here? Was the smoke still billowing, crews on scene?
No, they had the smoke was put out fairly quick.
There you have it, and she confirms what we saw as well on our tower cam, this billowing black smoke from the crash site, but somehow it either went out or somebody put out the fire relatively quickly. Within maybe 10 or 15 minutes, the smoke was all gone. Fire crews spent some time going into that building, making sure there were no smoldering hot spots there, and we believe they've completed that. And so the scene is under control as far as we can tell, but there is a lot of wreckage strewn about the area, on the roadway, in the parking lot areas, and so the whole area is closed right now. Ash?
Yes, and I'm told we have that air traffic control audio now with Stephanie Lum. Let's go over to her. Hey, Steph.
Thank you so much, Ash and Kiahi. Yes, just moments ago, we've obtained those audio transmissions between air traffic control and the pilot of Kamaka Air. We have learned through these transmissions that the flight number was 689. This all happened apparently as that flight was going to take off from Honolulu Airport, and that's when they ran into trouble. Let's listen.
Clear for takeoff, early right-hand turn, Hawaiian 326. Box 69, delay, turn to departure. No delay, turn to departure. Box 69. Thanks. Kamaka 689, you're turning right? Kamaka 689, we are out of control here. Okay, Kamaka 689, okay, if you can level it off, that's fine. Any runway, any place you can do. Delta 312 heavy, go around, maintain 4,000. Go around, maintain 4,000, Delta 312 heavy.
You just heard it, and let me run through what we were just listening to. Now, at approximately 3:05 this afternoon, Kamaka Air Flight 689 was asking for permission to take off. That's when the flight control tower told them that they were cleared. And then you notice there was that long pause. There was no communication there. After that, air traffic control asks Kamaka Flight 689, you are turning right, correct? That's when the pilot from Kamaka 689 says, we are out of control. Communication ends. Then you hear the people in the flight control tower directing airplanes to go about and make room on the runway. You hear flight control say to Kamaka Air 689, if you can get the aircraft under control and level out, then you are cleared to land at any runway. And there is no response from Kamaka Air 689. Once again, this came to us from Live ATC. Those are the audio transmissions that happened as Flight 689 Kamaka Air was taking off from Honolulu International Airport when it ran into trouble. The flight tower control asking the pilot, "You are turning right," and that's when the pilot responded saying, "We are out of control." We'll have much more coming up as we learn of new details. Ash and Kiahi, back to you.
Wow, that is haunting, honestly.
Chilling.
So soon after this deadly crash, for us to hear what sounded like a young man, a young pilot, communicating with the control tower. We are a little bit out of control.
Yeah, the long pauses. You know, your heart breaks thinking what they were going through in those moments, trying to figure out what was going wrong, what to do, trying to keep in contact with the air traffic controllers, and just a heartbreaking outcome to this tragedy.
Yeah, the modern reality is the flight tracking and history is all recorded online, and so we are able to get this recording relatively easily and quickly and help piece together what went wrong here. So clearly the pilot had loss of control issues. They took off, he tried to get back, he was in communication with the tower. They were problem solving. He was trying to get back to the airport tarmac or runway. And at some point, I think it's fair that he knew he wasn't going to make it. They were looking for a roadway, perhaps Aolele, and did not make it. They slammed into the side of what we believe is a vacant building there. As far as we can tell, that's a government building that is just not being used right now. And the fact that fire crews had to break down the door to get in lends itself to that as well. The pilot struck the side of the building. This is all the debris we're seeing here, and came down either in the parking lot or the roadway, or perhaps in the middle of the two. There's some ditch nearby, and the wreckage is strewn about the area. And that is what we know so far. 2 people killed in a Kamaka Air cargo flight this afternoon, or training flight. We're still trying to nail that down. But we just heard their final communications with the flight tower saying we're a little bit out of control.
Yeah, and you know, when a crash like this happens, one of the areas investigators look at is environment. We want to check with Drew Davis to see what the winds were like, what the conditions were like in the area during that time. Drew, what can you tell us?
Aloha, Ashley. Aloha, Kiahi. Like you said, it was incredibly difficult to listen to that audio from the air traffic control. And taking a look at our winds outside, meteorology and aviation are interconnected. And this is one of those days where we're seeing an unusual weather pattern. Typically, we see strong trade winds across the island chain, but we've got light trade winds, light and variable winds across the entire island chain right now. I want to point out our winds right now in town, around 8 miles per hour out of the southwest. Very light and unusual winds. And when this happens, we actually see different flight patterns from the pilots taking off from H&L. I want to break down what exactly is happening. We have typical trade winds out of the east-northeast, the trade winds coming in along the the flight path is coming in from the Ewa side of the island and moving towards Diamond Head, and they often divert off to the right directly after taking off. However, when we have light and variable winds like that, that is actually flipped. So we're seeing Kona winds right now. So the flight path is often coming in from town towards the leeward side of the island. And one thing that's even different about the weather pattern that we have right now, like I said, we were seeing light and variable winds across the island chain. So they could be out of the southwest at one point in town, but they could also be a little bit breezier out of the east-northeast, or even out of the east like we're seeing in Hilo. Very variable across the entire state. So the air traffic control operators may be directing these pilots to go in different directions depending on the wind speeds outside right now. Again, in town, 8 miles per hour out of the south-southwest wind. South-southwest. That's typically Kona winds. We're seeing the opposite flight path, the reverse flight path. Trade winds out of the northeast right now. Often is a west to east flight path. That's what we see normally throughout the day. But if it's a little bit more humid out there, or normally throughout throughout the year, but if it's a little bit more humid, we're seeing those Kona winds. The flight path, again, is flipped. Again, we are tracking this light wind pattern over the next couple of days. We're really going to be seeing light and variable winds through at least Wednesday and Thursday. We're actually tracking northerly winds to return by the time we get to this upcoming Thursday. We're going to be tracking the wind pattern very closely and how that impacted this crash. That's it from the First Alert Weather Center. I'm going to send it back to you guys at the desk.
Yeah, a lot to figure out still. Drew, thanks for that. Some good points about the wind and the different patterns and the takeoff directions for pilots.
Yeah, that's right. If you're just joining us now, a Kamaka Air Flight 689 crashed today at Daniel K. Inouye International Airport just after 3 p.m. 2 people have lost their lives in this tragedy, and there is a multi-agency response going on right now.
That's right. Many roads are closed in that area. This is not far from Lagoon Drive and the airport office tower, where you have that famous whale mural you can see from the freeway as you drive by. That's the area just Mauka of the east end of the airport. And our Eddie Dowd is actually live nearby. He's been at the scene since it all began unfolding. Eddie, what have you learned?
Yeah, that's right, Keahi. We were the first media crew here on scene, and what I can tell you, more units from EMS and HPD, the Sheriff's Department, have arrived to help secure this situation. Now, what I can tell you is we're at the barricade site, not too far from where this crash happened. Now, if you can see where I am, if the cameraman zooms in, you can see where the Honolulu EMS has gathered. Now, when we were closer to the site, we could see the wing of the plane in a ditch not too far away from the building. And then right near the building's parking lot, we could see what appeared to be a landing gear. First responders and firefighters were going through the rubble, and there are some details, obviously, that we will not share. But it's definitely a situation that is very difficult for first responders, as we know that there were 2 people who lost their lives. We are waiting for an update from Honolulu EMS, and we will bring that to you when we have it. We'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Eddie.
Well, we've been sharing a lot of videos and photos from the scene today as we cover this breaking news since just after 3 o'clock, and our coverage is just beginning. We're into our regular newscast now throughout the evening, and then, of course, online. If you need to leave home for any reason this afternoon, just go to hawaiinewsnow.com, download our apps. We're putting all of our information on our digital platforms to make sure you have the very latest.
Yeah, we're not done with this. We're going to be covering this throughout the night, so stay with us. We're going to